Hey, Andre, it's me and Andre today,
Hi there.
your
Good to see you
favorite
again.
psychic astrologer. Well, yeah. And we were just talking about DeJoy real quick. We just want you to know that he saw him going and I see him going, and I'm saying it's the end of this year, beginning of next year. But his chart wasn't so great.
No, with the joy, because I don't have a birth time, I was focusing on his Gemini planets, and Gemini is due for heavy corrections. If you're a corrupt politician or corrupt anything, 2023 and forward. So I surmised from that it could be a while, but then when I heard Rachel Maddow say Biden has changed a couple of people on the board. And because amazingly, this is the thing about our system. Biden can't just make a phone call. That's the way Trump thinks, I'll just make a phone call and fire so-and-so, but he can't do that. So they got to do it through this other thing where they vote him out. And I would say he's probably toast. And, that, by the way, has to be a pretty good marker for the election, because you eliminate someone who could cause a lot of trouble. I don't know. Did you hear that thing that this guy he was actually removing machines?
I saw that, yeah.
Email, and they were saying things like he was going to increase the prices and provide less service. What kind of business is that? This is crazy. It's a.
But by the way, the Postal Department Committee there got a fat Christmas bonus.
Well, there you go. Yeah, it's always like that, right? Yeah.
But,
anyways, that's good news.
So you were going to give us some important dates to remember.
Yeah, no, this is it has to do with just the sun sign. So there can be other planets, but the sun is a pretty big influence, biggest influence by far. So when there are cycles to the sun, people feel them the most. So at the moment, just checking my card here. So we've got people that are early February, by which I mean the 1st, the 2nd, the 3rd. You could even say January 31st, in that range. Then you get early May. So these are the Tauruses that are, May 1st, May 2nd, May 3rd, and then the end of February, and then early August is Leo, August 1st, August 2nd, 3rd, and the end of July, and then early November, which are the Scorpios, November 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and the end of October. So those people are currently under Saturn pressure, right? And the first thing to say about that is you could just wait it out and say, it's there, it's going to move. But you are looking likely at a less than, Merry Christmas, in the sense of being really happy-go-lucky, because Saturn is the opposite of that. And it's a little bit like getting your New Year's resolution a month early, because in the New Year's, it's like you do all the partying ahead of that. And then, okay, now I'm going to start dieting and doing this and doing that, because it's the more serious, concerted, I want to improve something, Saturnian energy. Well, that's coming early this year. So in a way, it's an advantage, because if you go with it and begin your disciplines early, even though you're in the holiday season, which just means maybe be a little more moderate, control yourself, exactly. Then you're more likely to make New Year's resolutions that will stick, because you'll already have the momentum that you've built.
Right.
As a result of doing that. But like I say, if you say, "Oh, I don't want to hear that," then you just wait it out and you wait it out. Feel better. Yeah. And
I know they said I'm accident prone these past weeks, and I've been very careful. Hold on 1 second. I'm going to close my back door because the gardener's here.
Yeah. So that's the Saturn influence. Now, if you consider a totally different energy now, the energy of Pluto, which is way out there, it's got a really slow orbit. And there, people born in mid-January, 15, 16, 17, and then mid-July, January is Capricorn, mid-July would be 15, 16, 17, same idea. Mid-April, that's Aries, in the same days, 15, 16, 17, and then mid-October, 15, 16, 17. That is the cardinal group in the in those degrees. They're getting Pluto energy, and Pluto is the planet that most seeks major change. It tries to change things in the biggest possible way by abandoning the past and embodying something completely new. Sometimes that'll be through the person's initiative because they feel the call, they feel like we gotta do this, they get started, and then they notice that their new way of doing things completely realigns things. But more often than not, there'll be events or situations that force themselves on you to cause you to make those choices. And that's more likely to be the case for people in July, April, and October, because there Pluto is challenging hard, whereas the January, it's conjunct. So there's a sense that it's united with you in some way. But even there, even in the January case, Pluto in conjunction can do it as well. The main thing, though, is that it's a great ally in that even though it is the Lord of the underworld that rules death, so it's kind of scary. But the way to look at that is, I mean, if it doesn't kill you, and it mostly doesn't until it does, basically, all of those transformations are very powerful because you leave behind something different that, but from before, that is no longer useful. And you can genuinely say there's a new person now, more effective, more powerful. It's a self-empowerment type of transit, right, for those people. And then now on the light side, or the the happy Jupiter side, mid-February, from about the 15th into the end of Aquarius, like till the 21st or so, till the sun switches to Pisces, those people are getting a Jupiter conjunction. So that's a happy, expansive, everything is going well type of energy. And it definitely can do that. You can get breaks, you can get lucky things happening. But if you don't, then you're just happy. And then what you have to be careful with is being overindulgent, because Jupiter is that expansive force. So it's the party planet. It doesn't like working. It's the opposite of Saturn, what I was saying before. Saturn in December is telling you, hey, you got to get to work here. Jupiter is saying, nah, work, no, just enjoy, right? So this is where then, if you just let it rip and you start indulging yourself, spending money, well, then when it gets to the other end of that, what you'll have is, some debt to pay off and so forth. Now, it's not that long anyway. Jupiter is going to be there November and December, but see, for those people, it becomes a really happy, holiday period on that account. The fact that Jupiter is there versus the Saturn. So that's February from the conjunction of Jupiter. And then in October, mid-October to around the 21st, when the sun then goes into Scorpio. Mid-October is Libra. So those people are getting the trine, which is a really nice alignment of Jupiter. Same thing again. And the other period would be in June, mid-June, just before the solstice. If you're born 15, 16, 17, up to 21, Jupiter is trining you as well. So same idea, things are flowing. Really the best way for Jupiter to show up is when this is the irony, of work and play. Saturn is work, Jupiter is play. So Jupiter is play, but it's also understanding. It's grasping things in a better way. So if you've been doing good work, then the Jupiter illuminates your mind, gives you a good vision, a good sense of where you are. So then the work you do is more productive after that. That's the best way that I would understand Jupiter, because yeah, of course it's great when you're just partying and having fun, but if you pay for that on the other end, then it's not so good, right? So that would be the logic of that. And that's really it. There are others, but it becomes a little too uncertain because it's hard to pin the dates down with some of the other planets, but those three are, pretty solid. And then of course, for the people that know astrology, if they know their positions, they can figure out that there might be other planets there. And so then they would get the effect of these three things that I said for different reasons, right? But the sun tends to be the big one because it connects you to purpose, direction, where you're going, who you are, your vitality. It's so critical that these types of transits for sure, will affect you in a big way. So that's the forecast.
Did you take a look at Beto?
I did not. Beto O'Rourke? No, I don't think there's a time for him either. I tend to, not that I avoid it, but when I don't have birth times, like I almost hope that an astrologer hopes that every politician is born in California, because in California, they record your time and it shows up in the database. So any, Pelosi, McCarthy, they're there. You just get them and look them up. Actually, not Pelosi, pardon me. Pelosi is born in Baltimore, So hers had to be reconstructed through these things that were being said about when I think her husband was on the floor of the Senate. Anyway, finally, there's a 3 p.m. time for her, but people like Kamala McCarthy, California, they're known. But a lot of these other people, they're not known. And, who do you ask? How do you find out? Right? So,
Well, I know I was born in Georgia and I never had a time, and I loved astrology, but I never had a time. I knew I was born in the morning. So then after Dad died, we were going through stuff and I found a little card that goes in your crib and it said 8:09 a.m.
wow, perfect. Yeah. No, the time is gold because the time, it frames the chart. So then you know where the pressure is coming from. And there's a big difference if you're getting a Saturn transit, Pluto transit, something harsh. If it's a politician and it's coming from the wrong house or it's in the wrong, whatever area, it dramatically increases the problem versus sometimes you look and say, well, yeah, that could, but it won't be enough to knock them out or to bring about success. Like to give you an example, if you looked at Obama's chart back in 2008, you wouldn't really know, you wouldn't get this sense this guy's going to win if you didn't have the time, because without the time, it was okay, but it wasn't great. In fact, there was a moment, if everyone remembers, when the political forces that oppose you brought out that pastor, Jeremiah Wright, I think his name is, and they brought out the pastor and he had been saying things about America and they were trying to pin it on Obama. And then he was having a really difficult moment in his chart that I knew about, even if there had been no time, but actually it's not true. The moon was involved, so the time was involved too. But the point I'm making is that if you were seeing that absent a time, you might think, well, how's this guy going to win? I mean, look, everything is against him. But he had, right as the election was happening and a little beyond, Jupiter was crossing his ascendant. And that's a winning type of effect. But you can only know that through the time because the ascendant happens at the way it's mapped. It for 2 hours, it's in that ascendant and then it moves to the next ascendant. So you have a 1 in 12 chance of getting it right. And because he had it there, he was elected. Same with Bill Clinton in 1992. Jupiter on the ascendant, he gets elected. You could see the polls and you could see that he had a pretty good chance, but that kind of cemented the idea. He's in a really good moment here and he can win the election as a result, right? So that's just to say that, if you are able to get a time, get it, because it helps a lot to fine tune perceptions. Yeah.
I've muted myself.
Yeah.
I think the gardener's gone now. So with the midterms, if you can kind of get an idea of Pelosi, with the midterms in November of 2022, do you see any changes there or?
The amount that I've looked at so far, there's McCarthy, there's Pelosi, there is Schumer, McConnell. The one that is a bit of a question mark is McConnell, because I don't have his time.
Right.
But when I gauge it overall, and especially if I throw Biden in, I don't know if you remember, I think you and I talked about this, but I know I certainly made a video a while back, 2-3 months ago, where I said, it's just really, really strange to see November featuring a Jupiter station. So what Jupiter's going to do is it's going to go into Pisces in the new year, and then it'll just race through Pisces and enter Aries by mid-May, right? And it stays there until about really till the end of October, just as the voting happens. And then it moves into a station. Stations are the bread and butter of astrology, in that you can always see when a big event is happening, you scan the ephemeris and just look at the station, and that'll often tell you the planet that is most responsible. So right. Jupiter is you could say the primo influence. If you want something lucky, happy, good, successful, blah, 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 to happen, it's Jupiter. Well, Biden is right at the very end of Scorpio. He's born right at the end, 29, and Jupiter is parked in November at the very end of Pisces, which means it's making a trine to his sun. I can't fathom, why would Biden be happy in November? What possible reason could he have to be happy in November, that happy, if he lost even the house,
I
because
know.
that would be really
I know.
uncool. He
Right.
can't lose the house. If he loses the house, the next 2 years are just going to be nuts, right? Crazy. Now, think about this too, in contrast. That degree is not good for Trump. It's just not good, because from there, even though it's not directly squaring his sun, which is in Gemini, it's squaring the sign and it's in a station. So it counts like a square. And Trump needs that house to go Republican, because if it does, they'll stop the investigations. But if it doesn't, he is screwed. He's got nowhere to go then, because then you get another 2 years. You know, this is the problem. He's always spent all his life delaying, blocking. You know, he uses
Right.
criminal money to
That's
block.
what Bannon and those guys are doing now.
Exactly. But the thing is, sometimes, you know, you play these games. It's like if you're playing in a sport, you can try to run out the clock. But if you lose the ball and the other team gets it or whatever, then they'll beat you in the last, you know, amount of time. So
I've seen that happen.
right. And then as far as the other people like Pelosi's is one of those charts where there is some sense that you could lose with a chart like that. It's not 50-50, though, more like about 60-40 though in favor. So I would still call it for her. McCarthy's has problems, because McCarthy strikes me as one of these people that is not a good fit for the job. He's not good enough to be a speaker, and he's not that smart. He constantly, like, for example, he never, ever should have let the Democrats run the investigation by themselves. That was the dumbest move in history. They had the possibility of having lots of Republicans to create, you know, can you imagine with Jordan and those guys running interference? It would turn it into a circus. He turned it down, and now they're investigating freely, right? And this was his decision.
But they do have some Republicans on there.
Well, yeah, but they're Republicans that are helping the Democrats. They're not his Republicans. I mean, his Republicans would have been, you know, like Marjorie Taylor Greene. Well, they would never let her on, but you put a few people in there that are basically naysayers, and you block the committee. And then on top of that, he is not even a good speaker. And so my point being, he's got this thing where Saturn is in his sign, right? And Saturn in your sign, if you're good, if you're a solid citizen, if you've set up a good pattern, if you've worked over years, if you've got what it takes, it can be the moment of assuming power and responsibility. And so then you have the burden of power and you have to discharge it. But when you're not that good, it just says to you, you're not that good, loss, right? Find something else to do. And he's in that place where, you know, by the way, sometimes it's not even that. Sometimes it can just be, I remember the thing with Gore and Bush in 2000, looking and seeing that Gore, I mean, I've always thought Gore is really smart. Gore was telling people in 1990 about climate change, and people, oh, you're stupid. Look where we are now, 30 years later. Why didn't you listen to him? You know,
Right.
well, he's this, you know, intellectual, whatever, smart guy, runs against Bush. Bush to me is a lightweight compared to Gore. You can feel it. I mean, you see, I remember watching these two, you know, do their thing in 2000, thinking, how can people vote for this guy, Bush? I mean, you can see that he's not, you know, he's a lightweight. But Bush won, Gore lost. And Gore had a career, like a planet, kind of like where McCarthy's going to get it, Saturn up in the midheaven, right?
Okay.
But it caused him to lose. You know, it just means this is like, maybe he wasn't ready for it. I don't know. That's hard to explain. That's where I think, in a way, I'm speaking against myself, because there I would have thought, hey, this guy has a
back then,
competence.
when you looked at that, you thought, oh, it's possible he's going to lose.
Well, I would have, you see, there I would have, by the logic of what I just expressed, I would have said, okay, because it's up in his midheaven, he's ready to assume power. And but then when you look at what happened, right, this is where you have to say Gore is one of the unluckiest people in history, because why did he lose? He lost because 90,000 smart, in quotes, Democrats in Florida voted for Ralph Nader, thinking, oh, I'm going to do a principal vote. And then Bush wins Florida by 500 votes. I mean, this is the nutty, you know, democratic progressive thinking, where you got to be smart, you know, what team are you on? So in that sense, Gore was very unlucky, because, you know, he should have won that election fair and
People
square.
never forgave Ralph Nader after that, by the way.
Well, yeah, I mean, were you surprised?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, this is like the Green Party, you know, back in 2016, she's having dinner, she's doing dinners with Putin. And, you know, aren't people going to begin to wonder where you're getting your money and what you're up to?
Right, right.
Is it environmental or is it fascist?
Exactly, exactly. What did I want to ask you? Hold on. What sign is McCarthy?
Aquarius. Aquarius. And by the way, you know, you can see the work of Saturn because he's out of power, and the things he's doing, he gets ridiculed for. He goes on and he does an 8-hour speech where he's talking about carrots and he's talking about all kinds of inanities and of course all the memes, and he's just not that bright. The man is, you know, I remember Rachel Maddow years ago putting what he was saying. She had the transcript and she read it and she said, what is this guy trying to say? This is not even, this isn't grammar. It's broken English. And you know, you have to laugh because you think he's trying to be speaker. I mean, Paul Ryan, I totally disagree with his view of the world completely, but Paul Ryan knows how to speak.
Right.
He's
exactly.
a speaker. He has good verbal patterns. I thought that if you're a speaker, you should be able to speak. I mean, you know.
And he made all those people sit there. He made them all sit there.
For 8 hours. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then for him afterwards.
Yeah. So the thing is, so he's got McCarthy, Saturn right now is right on his sun. And it is an elevated position in the chart. By the logic of going toward a career peak, it could work. But I'm really skeptical for the reasons I gave around where I think he doesn't have the competency. Plus, there are other things there as we move into 2022 voting that are not favorable to him, where you see that at election time, there are too many oppositions and squares and stuff where you think this is the kind of message where you're told, no, you've lost, right? Then McConnell, although I don't have time for McConnell, my skepticism of McConnell goes around the fact that he doesn't have anything great to help him that I see, even without a time, but also notice that his cycles are very similar to when he lost power back in 08, 09. He was out of power for 5 years because the Senate was Democrat from 2008, like when Obama came in, they kept it, even though they had that wipeout in 2010 when the Tea Party came in. That was the House, but the Senate stayed Democratic until 2014 when finally it switched, and the cycles are similar in that sense. And then there's Schumer. Schumer is doing quite well, right? Schumer's chart looks pretty good to me. It's a strong chart. Yeah, well, that helps. I mean, because again, you know, that would normally mean you'd keep it. But see, you got to remember, what I hear is that from what I've been looking at in numbers and so forth, the House is more at risk because the gerrymandering that has been done puts it in a more likely scenario of going Republican. Whereas the Senate, actually, they're saying the opposite. So in that sense, the Senate would be more protected. But really, in this case, it would not be good at all to lose the House. I mean, I don't think it'd be the end of the world.
You know, there's a lot of lawsuits going on about that gerrymandering.
Yeah, although it's tough because the Supreme Court is filled with right wingers, and I mean, I don't care what people say. People talk about the law and whatever, but it's pretty clear that, I mean, the law is whatever the judge decides it is, right? So,
Right.
I mean, that Gorsuch character, he's the one that Al Franken, you know, speaking to was saying, well, how can you say that a person who is freezing to death in the middle of the tundra has no recourse? Like the company can just fire him because he didn't do, like, what was he supposed to do? Die? Well, as far as he's concerned, a corporation has all the rights and the worker has none. But I'm sure if that were Sotomayor, she would have said, no, that's not right. It's this other way. But like, what isn't the same law? What are we talking about here? So clearly judges, they tilt, and, if they're going to say, well, we're not going to touch gerrymandering because that's the purview of the states, right?
Oh, yeah.
So what do you do? So hopefully, I mean, I hope you're right.
Or they
For
can
whatever
put the
reason.
John Lewis thing through.
Well, and the other thing that is happening here, if people have been paying attention, and this is sort of the drift of things, the problem the Republican Party has is Trump, because Trump is so damaged psychologically, he can't bear the fact that he lost. If Trump stopped talking about losing and just talked about all that is going wrong with Biden, because there's always something wrong. You can't do politics and presidencies and things without things going wrong. But he's hung up on the other stuff, right? So now he's promoting all these nut jobs who, are people like him who are talking nonsense, who are extreme, misogynist. This guy Herschel Walker, doesn't he have a problem with he's been abusing his wife or his girlfriend or both? I don't know, something's going on there. So then when you start putting candidates like that into the primaries, you risk that the Democrats will beat the candidate, right? So to me, I almost think we're seeing the systematic destruction of the GOP by Trump. He just got in there. You know, you saw him do it in Georgia. They shouldn't have lost Georgia, because how is it possible that some weeks after an election, the vote changes and Democrats get the advantage? The only explanation is Trump was saying, don't vote, you shouldn't vote, they're scamming you. So then Republicans stayed home. A lot of these people aren't very smart, you know. If you give them a message, they'll, you know, they won't think, well, wait, if I don't vote.
Right now, another group is down at the Daily Plaza looking for JFK Jr. to show up.
I mean, doesn't it make sense that if JFK Jr. showed up, he's probably going to be a Democrat? Why would he be Trump's? Like, how does that even work? I mean, honestly, it's just phenomenal. I know the level of thinking, it's crazy. But anyways, the point being that if you go by Trump's chart, not good, because his cycles are just not good at all. So then you think, well, where's this going to go? What exactly are you banking on here? You know, he's going into this thing where Jupiter in Pisces is not friendly because he's a Gemini and he has moon in Sagittarius. Both sun and moon are getting challenged, right? But then Jupiter races through, gets into Aries, and then it goes into this area in his chart that I first discovered back in 2016 in October. There was that scandal with the Access Hollywood bus where he was doing, right.
Yeah.
So I just looked and I saw Mars parked in this spot, you know, challenging that he has this 3-planet square and Mars was hitting it. So henceforth, I call that the Access Hollywood T-square because of that, you know, the thing. So what I noticed in the following 4 years is that every time planets went through there, he would squirm and struggle and face bad news, and he doesn't like it there, right? So you don't want any planets going through there if you know that this person mismanages the energy anyway and just doesn't do well on that. Well, it turns out that Jupiter, which is supposed to be the benefactor, is going to park in a really compromised area from May until till the election, right?
Right.
And the area is the legal area. And I mean, it's painted because you kind of think, well, that looks pretty suspicious because this guy is facing legal issues. They're going slow, right. But I wouldn't be surprised if we saw, what do you see about, because you said you saw Trump not in prison, but facing.
Oh, I don't see him going to jail. I don't know why.
But you see them
from the beginning, but I see a lot of lawsuits coming up. And I see him sitting before a judge. Either he physically can't handle it or he takes off.
He takes off. What do you mean?
Like go to Saudi Arabia or something.
Or leave the country.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you this, for people who talk about Trump going to jail, I think it's actually a bad idea, because if you put a guy like that in jail, it would probably make him more powerful. He would then,
because everybody will be upset.
Well, and he's
riots.
This kind of guy will figure out a way to, you know, it's like running a criminal enterprise from jail. And then, you know, it would turn it, I think it would be worse. Let's just say that. To me, okay. the just punishment for Trump, as I understand it, is to ruin the guy, because Trump is basically the manifestation of a dollar bill. He's just a money man. All he wants is money and power and influence. If you crush that, then that's what he would really hate the most. And in some ways, it's on the way to there, because if you keep chasing someone legally, especially if the whole government chases you, they have deeper pockets than you. So as much money as you may have, it can get really nasty. And then if they start finding you for, you know, all kinds of things, then even worse, right? So.
Oh, shoot. You know what I did? Oh my God. Hold on one second. All right. So I found out I missed my grooming appointment, you guys, but she said I can come at 12:30. So we'll close this out in about 5 minutes.
Sounds good. Well, I'll tell you
But
one point.
listen, can I ask you something real quick?
Sure.
I see you did something on the economy
On the,
on
when,
your show.
on the economy, what part? Remind me.
Hold on, where's Andre? You did, hold on, where is it? Biden's inflation problem, sorry.
Oh, yes. Okay. So Biden, the thing about Biden is that when you think inflation is Jupiter, because inflation is an expansion of something. You could almost say inflation is when there's too much prosperity, there's too much money floating around, so prices go up, right? Not enough supply.
Right,
But that shows up in Biden because he's on a Jupiter square, because he's late in Scorpio. It's got all those planets at the end of Scorpio. So Jupiter at the end of Aquarius squares it, but Jupiter is moving out of Aquarius as we go into the new year. So my sense is that would relieve that pressure, or it could be that people just stop caring about inflation, possibly for some reason. I don't know. All I know is that when you have Jupiter like that and you're the president and people are saying, hey man, the inflation is high, that's exactly why, because he's got that planet. But he's a Scorpio, Jupiter in Pisces is better for Scorpio because it's a trine, right? So he's going into better. Now, January could still be a little rough because Saturn still is squaring him and whatever. Presidents are always dealing with this, but overall, it's going to improve for Biden.
yeah,
I mean,
and they even found all those jobs that were given that they.
yeah, exactly.
600,000 is a lot to forget to add.
I know it's kind of nuts, but the one thing they got that was really cool is that CBO, that institution, basically approved the spending, because Republicans will say, oh, it's just there, you can't pay for it. But they said, no, it's actually cool. So this is the thing. And you start to see when cycles improve, you get those better messages and things start to align and things get better, right? So people shouldn't lose hope. I think this is like October, November is definitely a valley in popularity because everything is against them, but it improves, it gets better.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome, Andre, thank you so much.
All right. Well,
and then I'll post down there how they can get a hold of you. And
yeah, you can, you could, yeah. Okay. So say happy Thanksgiving to everyone though.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. What are you doing?
I'm traveling to California to visit family.
Oh, cool.
So,
tell them I said, hey.
Absolutely.
Make sure they get the red carpet out for you.
Yeah. I'm not that important.
Yeah. All right, sweetie. Well, you take care. I'll talk to you again. Ciao.
Okay, bye.